So today I would like to speak about the coming version, which is the version 1.5 of KherveFitting. So I am currently at version 1.46. I'm not yet at version 1.5, but in version 1.46, I have added a sample experiment manager, which I think will be very useful to most users. I will talk about it once I show where you can find this version. So if you go into KherveFitting website, you don't click on download, you go into files, and then in here there is a folder called beta versions. And in the beta versions, I tend to update almost every 3 to 4 days a new versions. And currently I'm at version 1.46 for Mac and 1.46 also for Windows. So all you have to do for Windows is to download it and to copy it into the KherveFitting folder. Okay? And it's not an installer, it's the executable. It's the proper KherveFitting executable. So it needs to be added in there, otherwise it wouldn't work. So what has been added here? For example, here, this is the standard STO file. And in the STO file, you tend to find the list of file managers. And now, I will show later how this can be useful, but now you have a sample manager. So the sample manager, it's a two-dimensional grid where you can add samples of the same core levels, and you are able to compare them with the plots, and it's just much easier to manage. So it's just here. You can close it, go back to it. You can minimize here using this button, put it there if you like, and continue with your experiments, with your pig fitting. So another thing I want to talk about is all the additional things that have been added. And one that I need to really emphasize is the refresh button. So sometimes users are adding more core levels into the Excel file, and this is not seen in the KherveFitting. And the reason is because there are two files, the JSON file and the Excel file, and they both need to be updated together. And that is done using the refresh button. So if you have a file that does not show up a core levels or something is wrong, just refresh it, and it will just look around and make them both the same. Okay, so that's something to do. So the next thing I would like to talk about is the different things that I've been adding, especially for people from Casa, which have been asking me for this function. So when you pick fit, and let's say in this case I don't, but let's say I have more pigs, so I'm going to add more pig model. So I'm adding another doublet of strontium in this case, and I'm going to this one to show it. And I may add another one again. And let me see where it is. It's here. Let's say it's there. So in Casa XPS, as far as I know, you have something like equal, and equal will propagate the peak model throughout. So if you have 1.98 on A, then it will put everywhere 1.98, and it will put all of them in function of column A. So in here, it's possible you just click on propagate in the green column, because if you go here, it's gray, and if you go into the green column, you can propagate, and that will go straight onto all of them. You're going to see that. That's it. They're all in function of A now, and A was 1, so they're all 1 now. But obviously for titanium, that has created some problems, because the titanium 2P 1/2 is not exactly the same width. So let's go back. You can also click on equal, and you should be clicking on equal in the constraints again, and that is exactly the same as for CASA. And that gives me that. Let me go back again, and I can do that on D, and then all of them will be in function of D. Now, you can see that, and I can go back. I can do the same now using the position. And if I do the position, if I say propagate, it's not going to think to be the same position as A, but it's going to look at the split, which is shown here. Okay, look at the split, and it should propagate to this value. And you can now see that everything is in function of A as per the split value. So, for example, if now I move the pick, they all come together. So that was done using that propagation. Okay, another thing that was added is able to work with multiple files at the same time. So, for example, let me again add a pick here. Maybe let me add a new file. And this will open a new instance of KherveFitting. Let me open up on my next screen. And so now this is a bit cumbersome where you can see that you get two KherveFitting at the same time. So I have added something here which allow you to minimize. So you can minimize, you can toggle between right and left. And you can do the same here. Okay, so now you have two instances of KherveFitting. Let's open, for example, something. I'm going to try to open, for example, this one, which is made of several pages. Let me show you. So it's just done of one like that. So let's say now I want to copy strontium or titanium into this page. I go into copy core levels, right click, copy core levels, and it says it's copied. I go into paste, and that should come in here. And that has added also the core levels, sorry, the pick fitting tables. And let's say now you had it completely fresh out of at least pick fitting pick models, and you want to copy this pick table. Let me just do that. Let's say I'm adding two more. A doublet, which I will add into here. And now I can simply go to copy pick table in here and add it here, paste pick table. And now this is added to the next table. So you can easily copy and paste pick table. Now, let me close that and let me show you this file manager. So I think this is the best bit of this version 1.5. So now we have let's say sample 1 and a bit of sample 2, so it's the same, but I think it's the same data that I've been copying. Let me open something a bit more interesting. Okay, let me add that here. So if I open something quite big, so it's opening here, and now we have many files, and this is quite difficult to go through this list. So when we go through the file manager, everything makes more sense. And I have added a tab where you can put a small description of your samples. So now you can easily go between each of those and see the evolutions, for example, of this carbon. And you could also plot them together. So now I'm pressing the shift key, and if I click on this plot, you now get the plot. You can also press F2 like you would do on Casa. So now let me do that easily. So I can just go F2 like that, or even another F2. And if you click on F3, which is this icon, you can just get them offset. So that's normalized to the highest peak. Let's say, let me press F2. You can also now change the normalization and use the normalization at BE. And if you just look a bit longer, it says press the shift key to activate the V-line in norm. So that means if I go in the plot and I press the shift key now, there is a red vertical line that comes up, and if I press here, it's going to normalize to this peak. If I press here, it's going to normalize to that peak, and so on and so on. So this is quite useful when you want to look at different normalization value. And again, I think you can also now, even so it's been normalized to this value. Let me go back again. Even so it's been normalized to this value, I can just go and press the F3 button. So if I if I press once, it's just a small shift. If I press twice, it's slightly bigger, on 3 times, on 4 times, and so that way you can see the differences. It's slightly bigger when you do auto, because now it's looking at the max, so I think it will do a 10% shift, as you can see. So if I do double, it's 20% now. So you get the idea. And you can then do that using the wide, and you can plot this. Sorry, let's plot that, and you get 3 of them. Let's say now I want to just normalize to this value here, and so you can see how this is shifting. So in here you get different tools also. You get a rename for renaming the files, but actually you don't really need to rename. You can simply do it in the grid. So, for example, this file is TI2P9. If I now call it 5, TI2P5, it will move to the grid 5. And it's opened, and now it's moved to the grid 5. There must have been another file on grid 5. That must have been something I had done. So let me just kill that. Let's go to the real 9. So I think there were two of them. So let me just go and call it 5. Let's see if there is another file. As you can see, there isn't. And now we have this file there, and we can just plot them as we like. Okay, so you can put it anywhere you like. You can sum, for example. Let's say now I want to sum those two together. I will just select those two and click on sum, and that will create one new file on carbon 1s6. So it will tend to go to the next available row. Let me delete this. So it's quite easy to use, and you can rename that as you please. Let's say now if I call actually wide here, if I was to call wide somewhere else, then let's say if this is called, let's rename that. So this is kind of the master, but now I will call it survey. So that one is called survey, and it was wide 1. If I go back to my file, now there is a new survey column created. Okay, and that wide 1 is gone. So I could call it back here, wide 1, and it should move into the row 1, as you can see. And I think last time I must have deleted the wide survey, and that's because I was actually activated on the wide. So I will have to get it back. But I think you get the idea. And this is also useful when you have different binding energy corrections. So it's all kind of written here, the binding energy corrections, and so you can just binding energy correct as you do usually here, and that will depend on the row. Okay. The next bit I have done is, for example, if I go into another file, let me just find that. So something similar, and this is 3 files put together. I think they must be looking the same, as you can see, and maybe it's easier to see it like that. Just a bit of silicon on carbon. Yeah. And so now, let's say this is fitted here, and this is the first one. So let me just actually add that here. So now you want to add this into the pick fitting table. So you add that here, and you go to the next row, carbon 1s1, and this results grid from the first sample is gone, because this is now the second sample, yeah, or the first row, or the second row if you like, if this is the first row. So you will get the results grid only for the same sample. Let's go back again. You get this row, and you can just look at the concentration. We can add also the oxygen 1s in there, and let's go back into the one row. So that's row 0, the one row, and now this is gone. I can add this one here, but if I go into the next one, it's gone. Okay, so even the results grid is independent from each samples. The binding energy correction is independent from each samples, and that's it. So next, what I will provide is the Doniak subject, which is also asked and requested by some users. So hopefully in 2-3 weeks time, I should be able to release the version 1.5. And that's it for now. Thank you.